July 11, 1979, 2:30 p.m. Miami, Florida, the Dadeland Mall. The heat outside is physical, a humid blanket pressing down on the acres of asphalt surrounding the busiest shopping center in the South. Heat waves shimmer off the hoods of station wagons and sedans, distorting the air, making the palm trees look like they're melting into the horizon. Inside, the air conditioning is humming, a low artificial drone that promises safety and comfort to the thousands of suburban families escaping the Florida sun. Mothers are pushing strollers past department store windows. Teenagers are loitering near the food court. It is the definition of the American dream: consumerism, leisure, and absolute security. Noon. Technically, it is past noon, but the sun is still high enough to cast no hiding shadows. In the hierarchy of the underworld, daylight is supposed to be the ceasefire line. Darkness is for monsters. Sunlight is for citizens. That is the unwritten contract of civilization. But parked near the entrance of the Crown Liquors store, there is a vehicle that does not care about your social contracts. It is a Ford delivery truck. Beige, boxy, unremarkable. To the passing shoppers, it looks like it's full of furniture, or perhaps restocking the inventory for the liquor store. It idles with a heavy, rhythmic chugging sound, but if you were to stand right next to it, if you put your hand against the metal paneling of its side, you would feel something wrong. The engine is straining. The suspension is compressed tight, groaning under a weight that cardboard boxes could never produce. Inside that truck, the walls have been stripped and reinforced with quarter-inch steel plating. The dashboard isn't filled with delivery manifests. It is cluttered with extra magazines taped together for faster reloading. This isn't a transport vehicle. It is a tank disguised as a service van. This is the war wagon. And inside, waiting in the stifling heat of the cargo bay without air conditioning, are men who are not sweating from the temperature, but from the adrenaline of what they are about to do. They are checking the bolts on MAC-10 submachine guns, weapons that belong in a jungle skirmish, not a suburban parking lot. To understand why a military-grade ambush is waiting outside a liquor store, you have to look at the two men currently standing inside the shop. German Panesso and his bodyguard, Berrio. They look like success. They are dressed in expensive, tailored slacks and silk shirts unbuttoned enough to show gold chains that catch the fluorescent lights of the store. They are browsing the top-shelf scotch, laughing, their voices booming with the confidence of men who own the city. Panesso is a high-ranking trafficker, a man who moves weight that would make the average street dealer faint. He is powerful, he is wealthy, and at this exact moment, he is making the greatest tactical error of his life. He is suffering from the civilian mindset. Panesso believes in the rules. He believes that because he is in a public place, surrounded by witnesses, surrounded by normal people buying wine for dinner, he is untouchable. He assumes that his enemies, specifically the organization run by Griselda Blanco, still fear the police. He assumes that the godmother of cocaine cares about collateral damage. He thinks the worst thing that can happen to him in Dadeland Mall is a credit card decline. He does not understand that the paradigm has shifted. He is playing chess, thinking about territory and profit margins. Griselda Blanco is no longer playing chess. She has flipped the board over and set the table on fire. She isn't interested in business negotiation. She is interested in total theatrical domination. The police in Miami, the officers patrolling these very streets, are carrying 38 caliber revolvers. They have 6 shots and a prayer. The men in the Ford truck have over 1,000 rounds of ammunition and automatic cyclic rates of fire that can cut a car in half. The mismatch isn't just in weaponry, it is in philosophy. The system, the police, the government, the public, relies on the idea that criminals want to stay hidden. But Griselda realizes that terror requires an audience. If you kill a man in a swamp, he is just dead. If you kill a man in the busiest mall in Florida in broad daylight, you become a myth. You become a god. Inside Crown Liquors, the clerk behind the counter smiles nervously. He senses the arrogance of Panesso and Berrio, the way they take up space, the way they don't look at price tags. Panesso picks up a bottle of Chivas Regal. He turns to Berrio, making a joke about the quality of whiskey in Miami compared to Colombia. They are relaxed. Their guard is not just down. It doesn't exist. They are completely blind to the fact that they have been tracked for weeks, their routines catalogued, their shopping habits noted by eyes they never saw. Outside, the driver of the Ford truck checks his watch. He looks in the rearview mirror. The traffic in the parking lot is light. The firing lane is clear. He gives a signal, a sharp tap on the partition separating the cab from the cargo hold. In the back of the truck, the breathing changes. The heavy metallic click of charging handles being pulled back echoes against the steel-plated walls. These are not street thugs acting on impulse. These are Griselda's pistoleros, a specialized unit acting with the precision of a black ops team. They know exactly how many seconds they have before the first siren wails. They know the exact distance from the curb to the glass doors of the liquor store. The Ford truck shifts gears. It rolls forward slowly like a predator stalking through tall grass and pulls up directly perpendicular to the entrance of Crown Liquors. The engine does not turn off. It revs slightly, a low growl that vibrates through the pavement. Inside the store, Panesso is reaching for his wallet. The leather is cool in his hand. He hears the sound of a heavy vehicle outside, but he doesn't look up. Why would he? It's just a delivery. It's just background noise in the soundtrack of his perfect afternoon. The side door of the Ford truck doesn't swing out. It slides open with a mechanical hiss. The sunlight floods into the dark cargo hold, revealing the silhouette of two men. They do not rush. They do not run screaming. They step out onto the hot asphalt with a terrifying, disciplined calm. They raise the Mac-10s to shoulder height. The black metal of the suppressors contrasts sharply against the bright pastel colors of the mall. A shopper pushing a cart full of bags stops. She looks at the men. Her brain cannot process what she is seeing. It looks like a movie set. It looks like a prank. It cannot be real, because things like this do not happen in America. Things like this do not happen at 2:30 p.m. next to a pretzel stand. But the barrels are leveled. The targets are framed perfectly through the plate glass window of the liquor store, like fish in a barrel. Panesso is still smiling, his hand halfway to his pocket, the bottle of scotch resting on the counter. He is a dead man walking, living in the final 3 seconds of an era that is about to end. The lead gunman tightens his grip. The metal of the trigger bites into his finger. The silence of the suburbs is about to be shattered forever. The sound comes first. It isn't a bang. It isn't the sharp crack of a pistol that TV shows have trained you to expect. When a Mac-10 submachine gun opens fire, it sounds like a heavy piece of canvas being ripped apart by a giant. It is a mechanical buzz, a continuous deafening tear in the fabric of reality. And then, the glass. The entire storefront of Crown Liquors doesn't just break, it disintegrates. In less than 2 seconds, hundreds of rounds of high-velocity ammunition turn the plate glass window into a cloud of silica dust and jagged shards. The expensive bottles of Chivas Regal and aged scotch behind Panesso explode, creating a mist of amber liquid and alcohol vapor that mixes instantly with the sulfur smell of gunpowder. German Panesso never gets his hand into his pocket. He never touches his weapon. The physics of the ambush make it impossible. Before his brain can even register the sound of the slide racking back on the machine gun outside, he is already being hit. His body dances, jerking violently under the impact of a dozen rounds, a macabre puppet show orchestrated by the men in the parking lot. Berrio, his bodyguard, the man paid to be the shield, is cut down before he can even take a step. Inside the mall, the illusion of safety evaporates. Shoppers who were complaining about the heat or the price of shoes a minute ago are now diving onto the dirty linoleum floor. Mothers are throwing their bodies over their children. The air conditioning system is now circulating the smell of cordite and death, but the most terrifying part isn't the noise, it is the discipline. The two gunmen do not scream, they do not curse, they do not spray bullets wildly into the sky like amateurs celebrating a victory. They sweep the store with a cold, robotic efficiency. They are painting the room with lead, ensuring that nothing inside remains standing. They are executing a contract signed by Griselda Blanco, and they are doing it with the professionalism of a demolition crew. Then, silence. It happens as abruptly as it started. The ripping sound stops. The only noise left is the dripping of spilled liquor, the groans of the wounded, and the distant hysterical sobbing of a witness huddled behind a display case. The gunmen do not run. This is the detail that will haunt the witnesses for years. If they ran, it would imply fear. It would imply they were worried about being caught. Instead, they turn in unison, weapons lowered but ready, and step back into the darkness of the Ford truck. The side door slides shut with a heavy metallic thud, sealing the violence away. The driver shifts gears. The war wagon pulls away from the curb, merging into the exit lane traffic. It doesn't speed. It obeys the stop sign at the end of the parking lot. It vanishes into the suburban sprawl of Kendall Drive before the first police siren is even audible in the distance. When the first Miami-Dade police cruiser finally screeches to a halt in front of the mall, the officers rush out, adrenaline pumping, hands gripping their service revolvers. They are expecting a robbery gone wrong. They are expecting a frantic gunman cornered in an aisle. What they find stops them cold. The responding officer lowers his .38 Special. He looks at the weapon in his hand, a 6-shot revolver, a tool for keeping the peace in a civilized city. Then he looks at the ground. The pavement is carpeted with hundreds of brass casings. The storefront looks like it was hit by an airstrike. The walls are pockmarked with craters that his service weapon couldn't hope to make. He realizes with a sinking feeling in his gut that he is not a law enforcement officer at a crime scene. He is a soldier who has arrived late to a battlefield, armed with a toy. The paramedics are slipping on the mixture of blood and whiskey. The detectives are walking through the debris, their faces pale, realizing that the rulebook they studied at the academy is now obsolete. They find the war wagon a few hours later, abandoned miles away in a quiet neighborhood. When the police technicians pry open the back doors, they aren't looking for fingerprints. They are looking at the future of crime. They see the steel plating welded to the walls. They see the gun ports cut into the metal. They see the empty boxes of ammunition. This wasn't a getaway car. It was a mobile fortress. It was a statement. The truck is the token of a new era, a physical, undeniable proof that the cartel has better funding, better intelligence, and better hardware than the United States government. In the next 72 hours, the shockwave hits harder than the bullets. The story dominates the national news. Time magazine calls it the war for paradise. The term cocaine cowboys is plastered across every newspaper in America. But for the people of Miami, the headline isn't necessary. They felt it. The city undergoes a psychological shift. The Dadeland Mall, the symbol of suburban sanctuary, has been violated. If you can be executed by a machine gun squad while buying scotch in the afternoon, then you aren't safe in the park. You aren't safe at the red light, and you aren't safe in your own driveway. Griselda Blanco didn't just kill German Panesso that day. She killed the idea of civil order. The police force is humiliated. The chief of police has to stand in front of microphones and admit that his men are outgunned. Within 6 months, the Miami-Dade Police Department begins a massive tactical overhaul. They start ordering automatic weapons. They start training for urban warfare. The SWAT teams you see today with their armored carriers and military tactics were born from the ashes of that liquor store. They had to militarize just to survive the streets Griselda built. But for the men in the morgue, the tactical shift came too late. They paid the price for believing that the rules of society applied to the woman who invented the rules of the drug trade. Here is the final law of the Dadeland massacre. In a world built on power, your safety is not guaranteed by a badge or a law. It is guaranteed only by who has the heavier artillery. If you have to ask if you are safe, you are already a target. This leaves us with a question that is still uncomfortable to answer today. If the police, with all their funding and authority, cannot protect you in a public mall in broad daylight against a determined enemy, do citizens have the moral right to arm themselves to the teeth, or does that just turn every parking lot into a war zone? I read every comment, so tell me what you would do. If you want to know how Griselda eventually paid for this arrogance, or how the CIA finally got involved, make sure you're subscribed. There is another story waiting for you right here on the channel. Watch it now.